Hello, I'm going to give you a crash course on Adobe Illustrator. It's going to be used for the laser engraver. All right, but before we get going on cutting stuff out and making cool things, I'm definitely going to need to show you some tools and how to set up files so that they can transfer to cut. First thing you're going to want to do is maybe just kind of prep a sheet for notes, the things that I go through. Some of them you're definitely going to want to write down. Otherwise, you can just keep coming back to this video, but either way, you might need to write them down. So Adobe Master Collection CS6, click on that. And then Adobe Illustrator 64-bit. You're going to click on that and it'll open this. It might not have anything here because you have to go to File and New. Here I would start with changing my units to inches. Many of us don't use points or anything like that. So inches, and then 24 by 18 inches is the size of the cut bed. So you can't ever go over that. You could make a document smaller than that if you knew you weren't going to use that much, but I always just kind of start at that. And then one thing you absolutely must do is go to this advanced tab right here and change from CMYK to RGB. You have to do that. Otherwise, it's not going to communicate with the program that runs the laser engraver. And click OK. Should have a fresh new rectangle here. I always go to View, Rulers, and Show Rulers right away. Just to keep in mind that this is 2 feet from here to there. So if you were to just cut out this rectangle, it would be 2 feet by 18 inches. Many people draw something like this and think they want the keychain this size. Well, this is actually about 7.5, 8 inches long and will just look ridiculous on a keychain. So keep that in mind. This is 2 feet. All right. Go by the inches on here, not what it looks like on the screen. First tool you're going to want to know is you're just going to click in the upper left corner here and you're going to type your first and last name. From that, I'm going to go back to the black arrow. This black arrow is a selection tool and it's going to allow you to move and transform things. So I'm going to click on the lower right hand corner and you notice as I drag down, it gets distorted. Okay, it doesn't keep its original shape. But if I hold shift, it's going to lock the aspect ratio. So I want you to lock the aspect ratio. And you should just do that for everything pretty much, unless you know that you want to distort it. And then just stretch it out so your name takes up pretty much the full page here. From there, we're going to go to this tab over here on the right. If it's not there, you're going to have to go to Windows, and make sure Tools and Controls are arranged, Workspace, Essentials. So if you ever can't find anything, make sure these are checked. But we're going to go to the Layer tab over here, and you're going to click on New Layer. From there, I'm going to go to my Shape tool. Anything that has an arrow or a triangle in the lower right-hand corner has multiple tools for that tool type. So here's my shape tool type. I click that down and I have rectangle, rounded rectangle, ellipse, you get it, but that's an indicator for multiple tools. Rectangle, I'm just going to click and drag. There's my rectangle. And then I'm going to do an ellipse. And I'm going to hold shift so that it's a perfect circle. You'll notice if I grab this black arrow again, I can move it around, and as I move it by other things, these green lines come up. So I can have it click and intersect with other nodes. All right. So then I'm going to try to just center it with this center point of the rectangle here so that they're in line. From there, if I want to edit my text, I can double click on it. I'm going to show you like a real life example. So I make something here, say this is my design. I copy this, I do a new layer and I paste it. I move it kind of right where it was. I double click and I edit this text to something different. Bill pay. We'll say that sounds good. Now I'm going to distort it, stretch it out so it fits the screen. And now this is when layers become important. So right here I have my design, and now I just want to compare this text, take the visibility off that one, and then turn the visibility off this one versus that text. So now I can just compare. It is way easier to do that than to make the same thing twice with two different fonts, and that should save you a lot of time. But as you get going on this, be aware of layer management, how to make a new layer here, and then how to just kind of trash it, drag it down to that trash thing. Knowing how to use layers is important and will save you a lot of time. So we changed font, we made two shapes, and now I'm just going to explain kind of what these arrows do. So we talked about this one moving things, and then here, direct select, that is kind of like a node editor. So I can click on this shape and you see these nodes come up, just like in SignLab. And then I can click, and then click and drag. So you have to select that individual node first, and then you can click and drag it. For shapes, I want to change the color. And then be aware of the outline. So this outline, I'm just going to go to blue, and the thickness of the outline, I'm going to crank up to 10. This one, I'm going to outline in red. I'm going to just crank that up to 5. Okay, so you should have something like that. Print it out, put it in your notebook, easy points, check it off, but you need to know these tools to get going on the laser engraver. So finish this up, get familiar with working with these layers, print this out, put it in your notebook, and as I go along, do these things with me, print it out, put it in your binder so that we can get them checked off, and I know kind of where you're at as far as tool-wise and skill level for your projects.